And we're live. And with me, I have, and I'm probably gonna butcher this, Castrejo.
It's Castrejo, but you can call me Carlos.
Uh, Castrejo. Yeah, because I did. You said that you're from Portuguese, so I thought that the J was probably pronounced like an H since you're Portuguese.
The Spanish actually pronounce the J's as H. We use it as a J. So yeah, yes.
Oh, yeah, because you say you speak Spanish too, right?
Oh yes, yes I do, and a few other languages.
Mm. Do you want to greet your fans in a few of those languages?
Ok, I'll give it a shot. Well, give it a shot. Olá pessoal, espero que todos gostem desta entrevista. I said to them, hello, hello people. Hope you like this interview.
Yeah. All right. How would you describe your personality?
I'm very timid. Um, uh, I've been since about a year or so ago, but basically I am very timid. To loosen up a bit, I drink a little bit, but I don't overdo it because it's at my age. It's bad for my health. So, yeah, that's my basic personality.
Have you ever been a feminist?
No, never, no, no.
Would you describe yourself as an anti-feminist?
Anti-third wave feminist, yes, absolutely. When I was growing up uh, in the 70s, the only feminism we knew was the um, the sexual revolution type feminism or the second wave feminism. And we still had the first wave feminists, the suffragettes, which were at that time old ladies. And I knew about them, but no, I was never the I'm more of an equalitarian, but I knew about the feminism, yeah.
Why are you an anti-third wave feminism?
Well, basically because they don't preach equality. I am pure equality, uh, but on merit. The third wave feminists um, invent labels. They are divisive. They basically infantilize everybody and every group. They want to be strong, appearing to be strong, but they aren't strong, and that's not what I want to see. Uh, I raised my children. I have a daughter and my wife. My wife is a strong woman, and I would never infantilize her or my daughter. My daughter is strong. She doesn't need uh, anyone to tell her what to do, male or female. So what the third wave feminists are doing is basically making children out of every group that they touch, basically.
So, why did you start your YouTube channel? What has inspired you to make your videos? Yeah.
Well, my channel, I have two channels. My first channel was a motovlog channel. I have a motorbike and I ride around my area and I film the landscape. I talk about my where I live. I live in a national park. That's one of my channels. But my other channel, which is more serious, I've gave you the link. That basically inspired me to do um, topics that are relevant today. I only have 4 videos at the moment in that channel, but I try to get people on to talk serious things. My first one was just an introductory episode, which I invited random people, and I had in my channel absolute stardom of YouTube, which I think they are bearing Kraut and Tea. I had the Sandra guy. I had Nicholas Goroff for the UK Gone Mad, for example. I may have missed a few because I don't have them here, but my other channels have been are of serious topics. The last one I did was on the migrant experience, because I'm a migrant. I was a migrant, but now I'm a local. I immigrated to Australia, and I lived as a migrant, as a foreigner in the country. And I try to do topics which are relevant, and but I can't do editing videos. I'm not that talented at doing those. I can edit, but I can't follow scripts in that. I prefer to do live streams, and that's what my channel is basically about, just topical live streams.
Okay. Are you an MRA?
Not in this, not in the basically the dictionary definition of one. I am more of an egalitarian, have equal rights to both sexes. I don't believe in genders for a start. So there are two sexes. Even the trans people, they fall into either male or female. That's what I believe in. But I want equality to everyone. So, but yes, and to another extent, yes, I would like to see laws that basically um, what the men are getting to the women. For example, in Portugal, we have for any case that involves either a man or a woman, the man will get a heavier sentence, and I find that unacceptable. I can give a concrete example. 5 years ago, this woman, she murdered her husband with the help of her lover, and burnt his body and did horrible things. She only got 8 years in prison, comparing to a man who just killed his wife, which I find that atrocious. By the way, I'm not saying, not in any way excusing his actions or her actions either way. They were both horrible crimes, but he got 25 years in jail, and I find they should be equal. The penalty of law should be equal to both cases. That's what I believe.
Okay. Have you ever been a MGTOW person?
No. Short answer. I can't think of a long answer for that.
By the way, you say you travel a lot earlier. Like you've been,
Sorry?
like you've been to Australia, and you've been to Portugal, or?
Well, my father was a migrant. He left Portugal at 15 years of age because we had a dictatorship that lasted until 1975. First, he immigrated to France, where he stayed there with my grandfather until he came back. He married my mother. Sometime later, in 1970, I was 3 years old. He called us to France, so I lived 1 year in France from 1970 to 71, while we were waiting for our immigration papers to travel to Australia. We landed in Australia on 31st of January 1971, and I basically lived there until 15th of September 1993, when I came back to Portugal for personal reasons. Yeah, so yes, I have traveled a bit.
What country have you been to that you think is most influenced by feminism?
Spain, definitely Spain. That I have actual contact with currently now. Yeah, I did a motorcycle trip last year to Spain. even though I live 2 kilometers in Australia, and as the crow flies from Spain, but this was more into Spain, and Spain at the moment has really regressive influences and laws coming into its society. They are actually, because of SJW's pressure, they're actually introducing uh, uh, teaching Islam in certain schools. So, so yeah, that would be the most. Yeah.
All right. Sorry for the background noise. I was just trying to spread the link everywhere.
No problems. No problems.
Um, let's see. What feminist aspects would you like to see change? Like, what is something that strikes you as pervasive? Like where you see everywhere, and you keep seeing it all over the place, and you think, man, this parts of feminism really needs to go. Or it could be social justice warriorism. But just think of what you think is pervasive and what you would really like to see to just vanish.
In Australia, when I was growing up I was just in the beginning of the third wave feminist movement at university. When I was there, I saw certain hintings of it, but it was still a very underground. Can I call it an underground or very um, beginning embryonic movement then? But when I came back to Portugal, I noticed that we don't really have any outward expression of feminism in our society. Our laws are and have been, uh, especially after the 80s to 90s, especially the 90s, they have been influenced by feminist movements, because our divorce laws are like most divorce laws in the Western societies. The women get the children, the men have to pay alimony, etc., and those sort of things. But in our universities, there aren't any feminist movements. I've asked my children and my friends, which have my son's at university, my daughter finished, but my friends have been there. I've always asked them specific questions. Are there any feminist movements at university? Do you have these situations? I said no. So the most pervasive feminist point that I would say would be the differences in sentencing in our legal system. I think that would be the most one that I would sort of question and try to change if I could.
Do you have an opinion on the alt-right?
Well, yes, I do actually. I'll first give you my perspective of Portugal. Portugal, because it was a dictatorship until 1975, we are afraid. Portuguese society is afraid of extremisms. Even our most leftist or right wing, the party that are in government, they are basically centrists compared to the United States or even Canada for that matter. But I do follow current affairs and current events in the world. The alternative right are basically what would be they are basically center to what the right wing parties are today. The GOP, they are now so far to the right that the alternate right are at the center compared to them. That's what I perceive of the alt right movement. Yes, They're basically conservatives, traditional conservatives. Yeah.
Okay. Are you an avid reader?
Yes, yes, I love reading. Absolutely.
What books would you recommend to your followers?
Tolkien, H.R.R. Tolkien. I've read every book he ever wrote. There's this prehistoric fantasy author. Her name is Jean Auel. It's Auel. Owl. She lives in Oregon, and she wrote a series basically set in Ice Age, glacial era Europe, about a young girl raised by Neanderthals. You may have heard of the film Clan of the Cave Bear. She wrote that book. It's an awesome series. I didn't like the last one, but that's just me. I love a couple of Portuguese authors many people don't know. One of them is Pessoa, basically the person, how you write person in Portuguese. Fernando Pessoa. He grew up in South Africa, he lived in South Africa. It's the early 20s, I would say. And our greatest writer is what's his name? Sometimes I forget their names. Luís de Camões. He wrote the most epic poem of Portuguese history, sort of Homeric type. In the Homeric type genre, and there's so many books. I could stay here an hour just reading, telling you them. I love reading, basically. Yeah.
By the way, do you have an opinion on the American presidential race, or you don't care about American politics?
Basically, anyone but the Republicans. I don't care really. I lean towards Hillary because I think she's, even though yes, I know the scandals that she's going through, her warmongering, etc. But I think she would be the most stable president. But I also know that the presidential is only one part of the government. The lower house and the Senate, or the House and the Senate, are the real power of the United States political scene, and many people forget that or just focus on the presidential campaign. I want a Democratic majority Senate and a Democratic majority House, but not SJWs, by the way. So they can not a great majority, just have enough balance in there to adopt, to propose and to actually do real change in that. Yeah, that's my view.
Yeah, I would agree that Hillary Clinton does come across as more stable. Anyway, would you like to talk about your somewhat religious background, or
Sorry?
do you want to talk about Christianity in your past?
Well, I was raised a Catholic, and I have my children were baptized. They did the confirmation and all that, but as with me, I I did that to them just basically out of tradition. I'm an atheist, an anti-theist atheist, but I can go into a church. I can do follow the mass as it is, because to me it's meaningless. It's like me going to a theater and knowing the piece that's being played at that theater and just basically following it as a spectator. My children were raised like that. I did the Catholic shit that happens, but just basically out of tradition. My wife's a little bit more follows it a bit more than I do, and so does my mother-in-law and my father. They know how I feel, and I don't care. My children are free to choose, both of them, and they choose. They don't care. They know the everything about the Catholic faith and that, but they don't really care. It's I left them to choose what they want. I've given them enough education of the points of view of critical thinking and that, so they can see the negative sides of it. So they are well balanced and they know what to do. So I'm quite fine about that. Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah.
You're an anti-theist, atheist?
Yeah, yeah. I personally, I fight religion, not in my day-to-day life. I can see actually Portugal is increasingly a very secular country. There's about 83%, if I'm not mistaken. I have to fact check me later on. But even though our official religion is Catholic, is Christianity Catholics, and we have a mass in our public television. We are extremely, we're a very secular society. Our churches are basically empty, just the old people. So that's what I am. I'm not very, I am an anti-theist. I consider religion basically a disease. So I try to do that to here. Try to convince people by just talking to them. Yeah.
Does your avatar have any meaning to you, or?
Yes, it does. It's an adaptation of the Rolling Stones, an album. I think it was 1970 something. They did a thing, but someone, I don't know who, put the Portuguese flag on top. So it's basically the Portuguese language. That's what it represents. I am going to change it. I want someone to. I'll talk to someone who can put all the languages which I can speak, basically English, and then all the other ones on top or something. I'll redo it in the future. But for now, it's that what it means, the Portuguese language.
Is there anything you wish your audience knew about you?
Yeah, I'm an archaeologist. I grew. I love prehistory more than history. And I want. I'm friendly. I invite people to come to my country, even though it's a shithole. I always say that because it's so bad that even the current Syrian refugees refuse to come here. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, because we don't pay as much. And I am basically honored to have any contact with people. I feel humbled by a lot of things. Maybe it was my upbringing or something. It could appear as false modesty, but it really isn't. I really am, even now, I'm really am honored to be interviewed by you. And it's no false modesty or anything.
What's this about what got you to prehistory, and what is it that you want people to know? Like, I mean, what is it that you like to teach people about prehistory?
Oh yes, that the Neanderthals were not the brutes that has been a stereotype. Europeans have about up to 5% of Neanderthal genetic material in their genes. I did a genetic test for National Geography, and they found that I had 3.756% genetic material of the Neanderthals in my genes. I come from Portugal, from a Celtic region. I should have said that before, by the way. Didn't think of it. Where I was born, basically from the 9th century till about the middle of the 15th, 16th, 17th century, we were basically isolated in a lot of ways. We didn't interbreed, of course, because we migrated to everywhere during certain periods of time. And the prehistory that I have here in my area, which is about 17 square 17 square kilometers. I should translate to miles, but I can't be bothered now. Sorry about that, my American mates and English mates. We have one of the largest concentrations of Neolithic tombs. They're called dolmens in Europe. We have more than 100 of those tombs here. During their Bronze Age tombs, basically. And but that is where I love. I don't really hate. I just don't like history because it's been written down. I like prehistory, where as an archaeologist, I have to basically first study it up. 98% of an archaeologist's work is library research, and about 3 or 4% is actually in the field. Then you come back with the material that you have excavated, and you go back to the library and study, and the lab doing confirm or something like that. So it's not a thesis because I'm only a Bachelor of Arts degree in archaeology. I didn't, personal reasons again, basically doing me. Coming back to Portugal, I didn't continue to masters or a doctorate. But my specialty is the height of the last ice age, or the last glaciation. It lasted until about 17,000 years before our present. And that was the end of the Neanderthals and the domination of of us, basically modern humans. That's why I love prehistory. It's just exciting.
Is there anything else, anything more that excites you about prehistory that you want to talk about?
Yes, they are discovering new materials, new data, new artifacts every day. About 2 months ago, in an excavation in South Africa, they discovered, Southern Africa, if I'm not mistaken, they discovered a new, we can call it an ancestor, because I don't know if you've heard, or if anyone of the listeners have heard of Lucy, an let me get this right, can't get it right, Anthropithecus, not Africanus, not a Bosei, afarensis. Anthropithecus afarensis. She's Lucy, dated to about 2.3 million years before the present era. They have found hominid that's much old, about 5 to 6 million years from our present day, and it's a direct ancestor to us. That's why I love archaeology. It's just exciting.
Is there anything about archaeology that, like the field itself, that you want to teach to people who are thinking about it? Yeah.
Well, I work in a museum. It's an ethnographic museum, and yes, I do do. I have actually a for my evaluation at my bosses. I work for a council. It would be a American equivalent would be work for the city council, basically. Except in a museum. I belong to the city council of my area, and I have to do an activity involving people, and I'm doing the Bronze Age of my area where I live in. So that's what I do actually. I do teach people about the prehistory. I've done it before, and it's fine. It's excellent.
Yeah, I could tell that you're really happy talking about prehistory. I could hear the happiness in your voice. You just sound really happy and excited to talk about it.
I can be absolutely sleep-inducingly boring when I talk about archaeology, but I get so excited that it is. It. I chose it because archaeology actually gathers every other scientific field. We use physicists, we use chemists, we use geologists, we use geographers, we use sociologists, we use every scientific field you can name. We gather information and data from them. Archaeology could be the pinnacle of a triangle where, for our obviously for our area, which is studying human origins and human us humans, the pinnacle of the scientific movement, where we command everyone to help us, or we say we want this, we want that, and every other field gives us that data. It can be almost a bit power-inducing euphoria sometimes, just thinking about what we can command if we need to.
So you know about physicists and chemistry and all those other fields. You have that knowledge.
I have basic knowledge of a lot of fields, yes, but not except math. I can't do math. Mathematics is the only field which just absolutely blows me away. But I understand quantum theory. I understand that's from physics. I understand chemical reactions, how they work. I understand layering data, dating, which comes back to physics and chemistry. I understand. For example, I'll give you a quick example. One of my fields, I had to calculate or seasonal or movement of humans or hominids before us, modern humans, how they interacted with the land. They set up a base and they set a walking distance to gather resources, either hunting or plant gathering, and that distance has been calculated to a medium. That's a mean distance of about 3 kilometers. So we're talking about pre agriculture, hunter gatherers, males or females, and that society was very egalitarian. So they would actually, from their center base where they had their settlement or whatever, they would walk 2 kilometers maximum to gather resources. Now you draw a circle of 2 kilometers around the center points. That would be the site catchment. We do an analysis of that site catchment, and that is an example where we used geography to help us to gather, and sociology as well, and also in other fields which they're involved in. For example, sociology, anthropology, culture, and all that thing. Get that area of where they would exploit an area. Now, personally, I've made a calculation that from East Africa, humans using a 2 kilometer dislocation, so you have a center point. When you exploit an area of 2 kilometers, a circle which has a radius of 2 kilometers, it would only take 7,500 years to get from Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda to Australia. That's 15,000 kilometers away in a more or less straight line. Well, not very straight. So, yeah, we use a lot of fields of study.
So, is there anything more about your field that you would like to talk about?
Oh, I could go on for long, but I won't. I think that would be that was the essential of why I like archaeology. I can bore people to tears if I go on about it. We can leave that for now. Yeah.
What is your best day ever?
Actually, it's 3 days. 15th, 16th, and 17th of May last year, where I did that motorcycle trip with two of my mates to a city in northern Spain. Just riding, we had the best 3 days of my life, of our life and my life. So they would be the 3 days. But my daughter being born, and my son being born, and me getting married are even higher than that. So yeah.
Okay, would you like to say goodbye to everybody in all the languages you know?
Ok. Boa noite, gente. Bonne nuit, toutes les personnes. Good Nacht. Bonne notte. I used to know how to say it in Greek, but I've forgotten it. And good night, people. And thank you for having me on, Summer.
No problem. Good night, everybody. Bye.